Welcome to another episode of Matbakh on AFIKRA. My name is Mikey Muhanna. Today we have a special guest from Cairo, FARAH ELCHARKAWY, who is a lawyer turned pastry chef who is spending her time sort of reimagining what pastries in Egypt can be all about. Those are my words, not yours, FARAH, but welcome to AFIKRA. And we are going to see.
Thank you.
We're going to see if I'm right about that claim and if you feel comfortable with that language. So let me just start off by saying welcome. And I want to talk about that transition. I'm sure you've told the story a million times, probably to your parents a million times alone.
So but I would love to share it again.
Yeah,
for sure.
Why did you make the transition into law, and why did you make the transition out of law?
Oh, okay. Into law, I don't frequently get asked this question. Why did I get into law? But so first of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to have this podcast with you, and thank you for your time. And I'm very excited to share everything about pastries and my profile and everything. So first of all, why into law? Why did I do law studies? Actually, I've been in a French school, and since I love the French language, I wanted to continue my studies in the French language. And I had a couple of available options in Cairo of faculties that offer French education. One of these faculties was the law faculty. I had law, economics, and maybe that's all, actually, law and economics. And I hate economics. So I said, I have no other option but law. And I had my best friend was going to apply at the same faculty. So I said, okay, why not? I have my friend with me. I will study in French. So let's give it a shot. And actually, during the first semester, I was not satisfied at all. I felt like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I'm so lost. I don't like what I'm studying. It's an affiliate of the faculty is the Faculty of Law, which is affiliate to the Sorbonne Paris 1, and also it gives you a double degree, one degree from Sorbonne Paris 1 and the other degree from Cairo University. So actually I have a double major in law. But after the first semester, I started to get used to the rhythm and to the studies, and I actually liked it a lot, to the extent that I applied for a master's degree in Toulouse, and I traveled abroad to Toulouse to have a specialized master's in private law. And actually, this is where all the transition comes from. When I went to Toulouse, that was the first time for me to be living abroad by myself for a full year. And usually, as an Egyptian girl who lives with her parents, I usually have food prepared by my family. I don't cook. I rarely go to the kitchen just for making a sandwich for breakfast. So that was the first time for me to actually be cooking proper meals. And I enjoyed it a lot, to the extent that I can take my break and go to the supermarket, to the biggest supermarket in the city that is very far away, but I would want to do that to pick the ingredients and to go to see different products and then go back home and cook. And started to be visiting the pastry shops there and get attached to pastries, French pastries, and also French savory, French culinary. So I went back to Egypt. And I said, okay, I feel like there is a passion, and I want to explore it further. So what did I do? I found that there is a culinary school in Egypt that is affiliated to the Ministry of Tourism, and that offers a 6-month program. It was not specialized in pastries, but in savories and the basics of the cuisine. So I did this degree, and I was like, it was a professional school and with exams and degrees, and so it was a proper school every day for 6 months. And I loved it. And I said, okay, maybe I will not be a lawyer. Maybe I should be a chef. But then I got a great opportunity to work as a lawyer in one of the best law firms in Egypt. So I said, okay, I'll pursue my studies and I will give myself a shot as a lawyer. I have to at least to go further in my career as a lawyer and discover whether it's suitable for me or not. And I worked as a lawyer for 5 years, maybe more than 5 years, 5.5 years. And to be honest, I really love working as a lawyer, but I felt that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This is not the field where I'm imagining myself in 10 years. This is not what I want to, this is not the career I want to grow in. I want to have a restaurant, but I'm this interested in having a law firm or being a partner. Oh, it's a good thing, but I'm not dreaming of this. But I'm dreaming of having a restaurant or a patisserie.
Yeah.
So after 5 years, I resigned and I went to France to study French pastries and to be specialized in the French pastries, not chocolaterie, not bakery. I wanted to be a pastry chef. And I studied there. I worked there did my internship there, and I came back to Egypt.
Okay. Thank you for the background. I want to ask you the most basic question. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
From a chef's perspective, from specifically a French trained Egyptian chef's perspective, what is the difference between Egyptian pastries and French pastries at its most basic level?
Okay. So they have nothing to do together actually. So Egyptian pastries is more of the it falls under the category of Oriental desserts. There's this Oriental desserts category that has pastries from the Middle East and that offer that showcase pastries of the Middle East. You can find the basbousa here, the kunafa. You can find it in Egypt. You can find it in Lebanon, I think. You can find it in Syria. You can find it in Turkey. So there's this big Middle East pastry school, and different, and that is actually like endorsed by different countries. French pastry is different. I would say there are different ingredients. For example, Egyptian pastry, we have the kunafa dough. It does not exist in French pastries. We do a lot of desserts with the semolina flour, which is used to make basbousa, for example. We use the phyllo dough, which is also not frequently used in France. So on the level of ingredients, there are different ingredients. There are different techniques. So when I'm thinking of Egyptian pastries, and I think, for example, of the kunefa, the balach al-sham, the basbousa, they have totally different techniques in the making, other than making a pastry cream or making a crème chantilly. Whipped cream, for example. So on the level of techniques, and it's very different. They don't apply the same techniques. And actually, if we will compare them to a different third school, the American school of pastries, it's also very different. Each school has its own manner of doing things.
So like if we think about just like the techniques, to learn how to be trained as a French pastry chef, how many of those techniques are actually applicable to understanding and exploring the pastries and sort of the desserts from the region? Do you feel like it gave you a special sort of perspective to be able to understand things like basbousa?
So actually, no. Actually, it's so different that they actually know what I've learned in France and what I did in my internships help me on the professional level on dealing how to deal in kitchens, how to understand the operations going. But in terms of techniques, no, actually I did a lot of effort. For example, last Ramadan, I was buying a dessert that has a base of kunafa and a top of flan, which is which is similar to pastry cream, but it's cooked, it's baked in the oven. And it was the first time for me to delve into Egyptian pastries. And I spent so much time trying to understand like how to make kunafa and how to make it crispy and all of that. But actually, so in terms of techniques, it was very different. But actually, there are for sure some tricks that I learned in the French cuisine or the French pastry world that helped me. For example, kunafa dough. On top of the kunafa dough, there is the flan dough, which is a creamy dough, and that actually softens the kunafa and make it so moist. By the time it reached the client, the customer, the kunafa will no longer be crispy, even though I made huge efforts to keep it crispy. So I learned, for example, in the French pastry world that we make a lot of tarts in French pastries. So, and the tarts are filled with creams. So to help the tart shells not to soften, we brush the tart shells with the cocoa butter. The cocoa butter creates an isolating layer that protects it from softening quickly. So after so many tries, I said, oh, why not try and brush the kunafa, bake the kunafa first, and brush it with cocoa butter and see. And it made a huge difference. So there are the tricks that I can use from the French that I learned in the French pastry world, and I can apply in the Egyptian pastry field.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you another question.
Yeah, sure.
So when people come in, people sort of like come to you in Cairo and they're interested in pastries. Are they? Yeah. Is there general frustration? And why aren't you making the classic treatment? Why aren't you doing things in the sort of classical way? Or are people excited that you're sort of taking knife and saying, all right, we're actually going to change this and treat this differently and add different techniques and different ingredients?
Okay. Let me tell you a couple of things. Generally speaking, people are very excited to new creations. People here in Egypt are very excited to new creations. And my vision from the first day I came to Egypt is that I can't apply, I don't see myself as a classical pastry chef, whether if I'm doing pure French pastry desserts or doing the combination of French and Egyptian desserts. But as an ideology, I decided to take people step by step in terms of not surprising them with the most crazy creations, but to start building new taste buds or creating and building new taste buds and understanding of new flavors. So if, for example, I did 2 years ago a basic chocolate cake, now I would never do a basic chocolate cake. I would do a fusion between the chocolate and another flavor, maybe a flavor that is so unconventional to people. So, for example, let's say, cumin and rose and peaches. This mix works together. I've never tried it, to be honest, but Pierre Hermé, who is the father of the pastry school in France, actually has created a tart that has cumin, rose, and peaches, which is wow! It's so unconventional. So people here in Egypt are very excited every time I create something new. Actually, I find very positive feedback. And my last creation was a lemon tart with olive oil. And usually people don't see olive oil used in desserts here in Egypt. And to my surprise, it was one of the desserts I got the best feedbacks on. People actually liked it a lot. And in comparison to basic desserts or in comparison to less crazy desserts.
Okay, so like let's take that dish, right? The tart with olive oil, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like explain to me, if you can, the whole process, like where that sort of recipe comes from, how many tries are you going at it? And once you finalize the final recipe, tell me what it is.
Cool. So this is the tart results from 2 years of experiment. Every time, actually, I love lemon desserts, and people in Egypt love lemon desserts, and my signature is the lemon tart. I started doing trials to create a lemon tart 2 years ago, and every couple of months I change something. I add some elements that increase the acidity. I decrease the amount of sugar. So it was a long process, and then I decided I want to create another flavor profile that can match the lemon. I was between two flavors, either the olive oil or the coconut. I got introduced to olive oil in desserts in Dubai. I was doing an internship with a chef called Karim Bougie. He's one of the best pastry chefs and just won the best pastry chef in the MENA region. And he had a very nice dessert, which was a soft vanilla ice cream with olive oil and sea salt. The first time I tried it, I did not recognize the olive oil. It was for me something that tastes like fruits, and I kept asking, what's this, they said olive oil. So I said, okay, maybe I didn't try a proper olive oil in Egypt. Maybe I still need to understand better the olive oil. So I started purchasing different kinds of olive oils and try to understand the difference. And I decided to make the lemon tart, which has a lemon cream, the basic lemon cream that I do. But instead of covering it with the hard meringue, I was covering it with soft meringue and just putting some drizzles of olive oil. And the first idea I got is to do an olive oil with vanilla beans, with infused vanilla beans. So I took an olive oil, a bottle. I cut some vanilla beans. I infused them in the bottle for 1 month. And I was satisfied, okay, this would be the final result. Then just on the day I was going to launch this product, I was invited on in an olive oil farm that was doing a tasting of different olive oils. And they introduced me to different seven kinds of olive oils, and I did a tasting, and I was impressed with the quality. And then at the end of the visit, they told me, oh, we have something new that we're working on. It's a lemon olive oil. So actually, they put whole lemons with the olives, and they grind them together. So the olive oil comes with a lemon flavor. And they told me, try it, maybe you like it, and if you like it, you can use it. So I did once I got home, I did the test, and I loved it. I loved it with the combination with the lemon cream itself. It was like, it gives a punch of citrus flavor paired with some olive flavor. So it was great. And I said, okay, let's try, and let's try to sell it and see if it works. And it really worked. Like, everyone was telling me, we never thought about olive oil in desserts. It's so good. It's so creative. So I was happy with the feedback. People are excited to try new flavors.
Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that I didn't ask you to prepare for. Well, I didn't ask you to prepare for any of these, but I want you to, which I appreciate. So the classic, what are the in your mind, if you were to pick the 5 most sort of iconic classic Egyptian treats, desserts, like basbousa and this type of stuff, like what are the 5 that come to mind immediately?
Okay. The kunafa. I love the kunafa, but not the normal kunafa. I don't know how we call it, burma. I think we call it burma, which is a rolled kunafa that has nuts inside. So okay. I loved it. I love it. Basbousa. I love basbousa. Balah al-Sham, which also is very nice. what else? Gul, oh, كل وشكر. كل وشكر. I don't know if you've heard about it. كل وشكر. It's goulash. It's goulash. It's goulash dough in bites, and that have nuts inside, and it's like that small.
Nice.
And sorry, goulash what? Baklava. Baklava dough. I always do confuse between baklava and goulash. Baklava in bites. And what else? These are my top, my favorite four.
Okay, amazing.
But then Aish Saraya is very famous, but I'm not a huge fan of it.
Ali, there's a bunch.
Oh, Ali. Oh, okay. Yes, of course. Ali, of course. I don't know how did I forget it. Ali and Mahalabiya, because Mahalabiya also it triggers a memory with my grandmother. My grandmother does an amazing Mahalabiya. So Mahalabiya and Ali, of course.
Because so far everything that you've described is interesting, because the way when I introduced you, I was like, this is Farah and she's reimagining Egyptian pastries using her French techniques, right? I was wrong, clearly, because listening to you, it's almost like you're reimagining sort of like the traditional types of French cuisine using Egyptian flavors and tastes, and they're not Egyptian specifically, but sort of using your local ingredients and say, oh, why don't we introduce olive oil? Why don't we introduce that? Those are obviously not exclusively from Cairo, obviously. But I feel like that's more of what you're doing than the reverse. Am I right about that?
Yeah, you are right. Exactly, you are right. What I'm doing, I've learned I've learned French pastries, and when I came to Egypt, I tried to. Egyptian pastries are very different, so I try to learn it, and I really want to have a proper my own creations of Egyptian pastries. But there is a transitional phase in between. It's like it's what I want to. It's actually what I call a flavor transition. I want to play on Egyptian flavors and pair them with French flavors or universal flavors. And like, for example, pistachio orange blossom. Orange blossom, it's not purely Egyptian, but it's a Middle Eastern flavor. And it pairs perfectly well with pistachios, for example. So star anise is also Egyptian. I don't know if it's Egyptian or Middle Eastern, but I've recently created an orange cake with star anise. So I try to play on the flavors profile, mixing Middle Eastern flavors with French flavors.
Yeah. So the next question I'm going to ask you is totally unfair, but I'm just going to ask it to you anyway. Which is, if you were to take those 4, 5, 6 dishes that you mentioned and completely remix them, right? And using your techniques and a broader sort of palette of possible flavors, there's two parts of the question. One, do you feel like it's like haram to do that? Like, do you feel like, oh, you should just leave these as is, you shouldn't mess with them, you shouldn't change them, this is how they are supposed to be? And if not, what are some of the if you were forced to answer this now, like what are some immediate things like, oh, basbousa with this would be fun, knefe with this would be really interesting, and these are the sort of the experiments that I would love to try.
So to answer your first question, no, it's totally acceptable to play with Egyptian desserts, because simply this would be my vision of mixing Egyptian and French desserts. The proper and classic Egyptian treats would not disappear, and they can be offered in the market. But there is another version that can be offered, and people may like it or may prefer the classical one. So, of course, no, I would love to do that. In terms of ideas, what can I do with? Okay, so for example, I can do millefeuille using baklava dough instead of using baklava dough instead of puff pastry dough, for example. So doing layers of baklava with the pastry cream inside, and maybe with the pastry cream add some caramelized dates, which are very Egyptian, since the pharaohs' years use dates, and maybe add some cardamom caramel drizzles of cardamom caramel. For me, this would be, and some maybe crunch of hazelnuts. That would be for me a great dessert to try. What else? Also, maybe a work around the crème brûlée version of the Ali, for example, or the mahalabeya, like have them topped with the sugar that is torched to have this crunchy and colorful effect. So that would be a good recipe to try. بسبوسة يعني بسبوسة is already بسبوسة. I can't imagine inventing بسبوسة because it's good as it is. The easiest thing would be to top it with creams, but I really sometimes I like classical things, and sometimes I would say no, I will not reinvent some items like basbousa. In Egypt, there was a trend of doing Nutella basbousa and red velvet basbousa. I did not like this trend at all. I was against it. I was no, leave basbousa as it is. We should not. It's haram. It's haram to reinvent it. But kunafa though, it can be used it can be reinvented. Kunafa is so crispy. It can in France there is this ingredient called feuilletine, which is a very thin. It's not a biscuit, but it's like the ice cream biscuit. It's very thin, and it's broken into very thin pieces, mixed with chocolate and praline, and it gives a crunch. It does not soften in the desserts. It gives a crunch in between the layers. So kunafa can serve as a feuilletine, can be mixed with some chocolate and maybe praline. Praline is the caramel and nuts mixed together. So it gives a nutty paste that is caramelized. So kunafa can be mixed with the praline, pistachio praline, for example, and have some pastry cream on top with figs, for example. That would be good with the caramelized or candied figs. So these are things that we can work around.
Amazing. Can I ask you like a public health question? There's like a broader trend towards viewing sugar as a poison, and people saying, we need to decrease the amount of sugar intake that we have overall, and sort of push back on the sort of Americanization of desserts, which happened over the last 60 years of just huge desserts, right? Instead of having a small chocolate at the end of a meal, it's like this huge chocolate cake this big.
Yeah, so it was cream and
cream
and butter, cream and icing sugar and this. Yes,
exactly. And in the Arab world, we have suffered insane amounts of obesity, specifically in the Gulf. I wonder, like, what is the responsible way of reacting to that? To say, listen, there is a responsible way to eat sweets, and there is a responsible way to enjoy and have desserts. Like, is that something that somebody in your position thinks about?
Of course. Look, one of the comments I usually get from my customers is that my desserts are not super sweet. They are just perfectly sweet. And I understand from where does this come from? In Egypt, when we talk about Oriental desserts, many shops use the syrup, but in huge quantities. Like, I will give you an example. I had a Greek friend visiting me a few days ago, and she loves Balach Hashem. We got Balach Hashem from the store. That is good, but it's not very popular. And we got Balach Hashem from another store that is super popular. And I tasted both. And the one that came from the popular pastry shop was really too sweet. Like, you can see the syrup between the Balach Hashem. The other one had less syrup. So it's not about the recipe. It depends on the chef and the amount of syrup or sugar he likes to use. So for me, I actually don't like sweet desserts that are too sweet, and I'm always keen to decrease the amount of sugar that I use in my desserts. Or sometimes I work around using honey instead of sugar in some of the desserts. I don't use syrups. If I want to create a shiny effect, I do something called nappage, a glaze, neutral glaze, which protects the layer and gives the shine, and does not have sweet. It does not have sugar. So there are ways to work around our sugar intake, whether by whether by creating desserts that have no sugar and use honey instead, or decreasing the amount of sugar we use in our recipes.
Yeah, so interesting. I mean, I always see it with with my nieces and nephews, like the amount of in Knefe specifically, like the atar that they give you is like this much. It's crazy.
Yeah. But sometimes, actually, from the same shop, it depends. Actually, sometimes the results are not consistent at the same shop. Sometimes, once I had the best basbousa in the world from this shop, and 2 days later I went to get it again. It was so sweet. So it actually depends on this amount of syrup we use and we decide to pour on the dessert.
Yeah. Since you're talking about other restaurants, let me ask you about sort of like the food scene in Cairo.
Mm-hmm.
What's the food scene like in general? Do you feel like there's a lot of innovation going on? Do you feel like the quality of restaurants in Cairo is good or bad? Tell me a little bit about it.
For sure. There has been a huge boom in the food industry in Egypt. People became there has been so many options. There have been so many new options, new cuisines introduced to Egypt. People are welcoming the new cuisines, and chefs became more and more educated and innovative. Many young persons traveled abroad to learn different cuisines and came here to Egypt to implement it differently and do some fusions. So for sure, there has been a huge boom in the industry, and I'm very proud of what's happening here. But I have to say also that this boom is more obvious in the savory field more than the pastry field. The pastry field is not still very explored, and maybe still limited between the Oriental desserts, the classical Oriental desserts, and the American style desserts. There haven't been so many innovations in the pastry field, unlike the savory field. So this is good for me because I have room for innovation and I have less competition. But it's coming. It's coming because people have the mindset, customers here have the mindset of accepting new cuisines.
In general, do you feel like the restaurants in Cairo are overrated or underrated?
I feel like the Egyptian restaurants may be underrated. Specifically, the restaurants that are in popular neighborhoods are not popular, or maybe not popular. But I mean,
sort of like the residential neighborhoods, the classic restaurants. Yeah.
Yeah, like no, I mean like for example, in neighborhoods like maybe neighborhoods that are not very touristic, not less touristic neighborhoods. They can have very good restaurants, but that are not actually explored unless by the people of the neighborhood. So some very good restaurants can be unknown to people and hence underrated. Other than that, yeah, it's like the usual mix. Like there are good restaurants and there are overrated restaurants. There are underrated restaurants in the popular areas or the less touristic areas.
Yeah.
But no, it's average. I can't answer your question easily because there's underrated, there are overrated. Generally speaking, no, I don't think they are overrated.
Yeah. So like let's say I'm going to Egypt, I'm going to Cairo tomorrow, okay? And I'm there and I'm staying at a friend's house in one of those neighborhoods, right? Not a touristic place at a hotel. I'm staying at Airbnb in one of these sort of like real residential neighborhoods. And I go to one of these neighborhood places. And I text you and I'm like, Farah, what should I order? What's the order?
I'll definitely recommend the touristic places. I'll tell you, you can go to X, Y, Z.
So you tell me, don't risk it. Don't risk going to these places. Actually, play it safe.
I'll ask you so many questions. Is your stomach sensitive or not? Do you have Egyptian company or not? Are you willing to walk in scary streets with no lighting or not? So to play it safe, I will suggest the touristic places. Go to X, go to Y.
You're like it's overrated, but don't worry about it. It's safe.
But for example, for me, Zuba is one of the best restaurants that I can recommend to a foreigner friend. I personally go eat there a lot. I like it a lot. For me, it's not overrated. Some people think it's overrated, honestly. For me, it's not. I like what they do. It's clean. It's innovative. Everything about the place, whether the packaging, the interior, the vibes, for me it's fascinating. I really like it and I would recommend it, and I don't feel it's overrated. It deserves this the feedback.
The success.
The success.
Okay, so let's say I go to one of the touristic places. So I'm about to go to the non-touristic place. You're like, Mikey, stop.
Yeah, stop, Mikey.
go to the touristic place. Okay, I sit down and I text you. I'm like, all right, I am at one of the classic tourist Egyptian restaurants. I'm very hungry. What should I order?
Okay. So I would recommend the koshari because it's the national Egyptian dish. And then I would recommend to have what is kan asir asad. Kan in French it's kan asir. I can't remember the name in English. I'll Google it. Wait. But then this juice, I would recommend for you to try the juice, koshari, and then the juice, and then definitely go to have some basbousa and kunafa. I would also recommend to have fatta. Fatta is an Egyptian dish that has rice, bread, baladi bread, and tomato sauce.
Oh, you do it with tomato sauce?
Yeah, we don't do it the Syrian way that has
yogurt.
Yogurt. We don't use yogurt. It's rice, bread, baladi bread, and tomato sauce. And the bread is not crispy. It's not a fried bread. It's moist. I've never tried it crispy.
Wow.
It's so different in Egypt. And then also I would sugar cane. Sugarcane
Sugarcane,
juice.
yeah. Sugarcane juice. Stop. Yeah.
Sugar. Okay. And then fatir. You know, fatir, of course, I would recommend for you to try fatir, cheese fatir. And then I would recommend some shish tawouk and kufta and grilled food in general.
Is your shish tawouk, is your mashawi, like your shish tawouk kafta, is it very similar to the stuff that we have in Palestine and Lebanon and Syria, or is it different?
It's very similar. It's very similar. We use maybe I think it's very similar. Maybe the difference would be in the spices we use to spice the meat or something. For sure, we don't use any sauces, but it's very similar. Kushari and fatta and are the most iconic Egyptian plates. And then for breakfast, I would for sure recommend falafel, fool and falafel. If you're not going for a dinner or a lunch, fool and falafel all the way.
Yeah, and then go nap.
And nap for 2 days.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So I want to do our single ingredient, and then we have a special treat that you're going to do for us. We're going to show us some of your pastries live, which is amazing. So let's talk a little bit. We asked you what single ingredient you wanted to pick, and you picked nuts. So tell us what we should know about nuts and why you like them so much.
Okay. Nuts for me are, first of all, I love the taste of nuts. The taste of nuts in general, I really like it. But what's impressive about nuts is that you can use it in so many forms, and every time it will give you a different result. So if we're talking about, for example, a nut, we can powder it so that we use it as an alternative to flour. There are so many people who are intolerant to gluten, to flour, and look for substitutes. And these substitutes can be an almond flour or hazelnut flour or pistachio flour, which are basically the nuts that have been powdered, turned into powder. And then nuts can also be used can add crunchiness to a dessert. So if you want to add different textures in a dessert, you can caramelize nuts with some water and sugar. You boil them with some water and sugar and transfer them to the oven, and then they turn into a caramelized that are very crispy and semi-sweet. This puts them into another level. Another way of using nuts is to transform them into a paste. Whether it's a pure paste, which is very healthy, you grind them and you turn them into a paste like pistachio paste, which is very tasty. You can use it as a layer in a dessert. You can put some pistachio paste on top, so it gives a color, it gives a twist in the taste. Or you can use it as a praline, which consists of mixing it with caramel and turning it into a paste. And what I also love about nuts is that they can be paired with so many options. For example, pistachios. I love pistachios. When you pair pistachios with raspberries, this puts the dessert in another level. Pistachios and raspberries are amazing together. Pistachio and orange blossom. It's a perfect mix. Pistachio and hazelnut together. Actually, once I was trying a recipe, and it was a pistachio cake, and then I found that the cake was made of pistachio powder and hazelnut powder, and I was thinking, why am I using hazelnut? It's just a pistachio cake, but having them mixed together also brought a new flavor that was not familiar for me. Like it's the same. It's not pistachios. It's not hazelnut. It's something in between. So this is why I really like the use of nuts in the desserts. You can get so many results out of them, and textures and pairings and richness and flavor and richness and textures and everything. So I do really like, and actually, I was a chocolate person. I didn't like nutty desserts until I went and traveled and studied pastries and tried them in different forms. And I said, "Oh, okay, I'm no longer a chocolate person. I'm a nuts person."
Amazing.
So yeah. And actually,
Okay.
the dessert that I'm going to finish in front of the camera would be a biscuit with caramel, and then with caramelized nuts dipped in a chocolate, two different kinds of chocolate. So there's one biscuit that has peanuts, and the other biscuit that has pistachio and hazelnuts. And each of these biscuits is dipped in a different kind of chocolate to have different flavors profiles.
Amazing. You're killing me because now I'm so hungry. Okay, let's do this quick Q&A and then we're going to go watch it. So these days, what are you reading or watching these days?
Okay. Not food related or food related?
No judgment, not food related. No.
Okay. I've been watching a very controversial series, Egyptian series, social and drama series about social problems in the family. Or it's very controversial because it's very criticized here in Egypt. So I've been watching it and I like it. It's a story of a family and many divorces and.
What show?
Do I say the name?
Yeah.
أزمة منتصف العمر, which means middle age crisis.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
To shadow for a day.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That would be maybe. I know. He's a French pastry chef called François Daubinet. He's one of my idols. He used to be the executive pastry chef of Fauchon Paris, and then now he's no longer working there, and he's actually identifying himself as an artist because he uses art in so many forms to create dessert. So he does crazy creations using art. He's an idol for me. I really want to work with him one day. I've met him in person and I really admire his work.
Amazing. What is your guilty pleasure midnight food choice? So you wake up you come home at midnight.
This is horrible. Okay. So many guilty pleasures. I would say mahshi. I can wake up at midnight and have mahshi, bechamel, chicken pané, moussaka, مسقعة. I can wake up in the middle of the night and have these. And fries and burger, everything. I regret it afterwards, but unfortunately, I can't eat these things at night.
كله بنفس الوقت كمان.
If they are all here, yes.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay. What dish reminds you most of home?
رز معمر, which is milk rice baked in the oven. Milk rice baked in the oven.
Cool.
Are you familiar with this dish?
No.
Some people.
Riz b'laban?
No, it's not ruz b'laban. It's ruz ma'ammar, and it's like rice and milk that are baked together in the oven, and it has the surface is burnt a little bit like bechamel.
Yum.
It's and some people do it with put inside pigeons.
Oh my God, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go see what you have prepared for us. Okay,
you have to hold with me for 30 seconds just to reach the kitchen.
So where are you, by the way? Tell us where you are.
I'm at home, and actually currently my kitchen is in a different apartment, just on the just on the floor downstairs, just downstairs.
Okay, cool.
Soon I'll be moving from this kitchen to go into another kitchen that can be bigger and where I can have larger operations.
Yeah.
For the moment, what you're seeing, but here's the working table. It has butter, has some ingredients, and then here I have some of the ingredients. I have here another stand with some of the utensils. Here I have the oven. It's a small oven. It's not still an industrial kitchen, but I'm trying to every once in a while introduce new equipment. So here I have a sheeter that I recently purchased. A sheeter is it's a machine that helps in rolling dough. This is a shortbread, and what I'll do is that I will type some caramel on each of these. In one of these, I'll add peanuts, and on the other one, I'll add the pistachio. Now you can see?
Yeah, now I see, yeah.
Okay, let me try to see if, okay. So, first thing I'm going to do to type the caramel. And what's interesting is that I put, I know now, I know how many grams do I put. Here it's around 7 grams, and here it's around 5 grams. And since and it's for a reason, because with the peanuts, I like to add more sweetness, so I add more caramel, but with the pistachios and hazelnut, I prefer to have the nutty flavor overpowering. So next step is I'll add some sea salt, because I like to have flavor contrasts, and not too many, like around 4 or 5, because otherwise it's too much. And then I'll add peanuts. And when adding peanuts, I'm keen to have them cover the edges, and you'll understand why afterwards. And here I'll add 1 hazelnut here, 1 there, and pistachios. Like this. And I'll leave it to cool in the freezer, but I have prepared 2 others that had already been cooled. I have a good freezer, a shock freezer. We have an equipment called a shock freezer, which is operates at -40 degrees. If I have a shock freezer, it would take 1 minute. If I have a regular freezer, it would take maybe 2 hours. What I'll do now, this is a dolce chocolate. It's a chocolate that has this one. It's a chocolate that is caramelized. It's actually white chocolate that has been caramelized. I did not caramelize it. I bought it this way, but the origin of it is that it's caramelized white chocolate, and it has a caramelized flavor. So what I'll do is that I'll take the pistachio and the hazelnut. I'll dip it here, and I'll put it again on the tray to leave it to make it cool, so I can be able to paint it. I will show you that. And then the peanuts one, I'll dip it in the dark chocolate. And here it is. And I leave it cool, okay. And I leave it to cool just for, I'll clean the edges to be proper. And I leave it for 2 minutes in the freezer, so that the chocolate is no longer soft. And meanwhile, I'll prepare the coloring, the food coloring. I'll show you what I'll do. Give me a second. So here I have 2 food coloring. One that is gold, and the other one it's copper or reddish copper. What I'll do is that I'll brush the surface with a makeup brush actually, so that it becomes gold. I just need to see if the chocolate is ready. I have to make sure there's no excess, and when I was telling you I put peanuts at the edges, there are no holes in the edges, like the chocolate. It's like from each side and from the end. And then the other one, I'll use now the gold color. So it's ready. Let me cut it to see the inside.
So cool.
So from the inside, you can see the chocolate layer, the coating, the caramel, the nuts appear, and the biscuit.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Farah, well, I guess when I come to Cairo, I know where I'm going. My first stop.
Of course. I'll be waiting for you.
Well, people can find you online very easily, FARAH ELCHARKAWY, and find your work and all the stuff that you create. It was such a privilege to speak to you, and so cool that you took us behind the scenes and showed us some of your work.
Thank you. It was exciting for me. Thank you. No, seriously, I'll wait for you the next. I'll wait for you when you come to Egypt. I would be delighted if you try the dessert and tell me what do you think about these.
Yeah, and we can go to one of the touristic places.
Non-touristic places.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Thanks so much, Farah.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure talking to you.